Changli just came out and you guys are probably looking for a full guide, so there it is. I'll go over her full kit, best weapons, best echoes, best teams and rotations, all the good stuff. But if you're not subscribed yet, please consider doing it since these videos takes quite a long time to make, and I'm also trying to reach 1K subs. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so Changli is a fusion sub DPS, and she uses a sword as weapon. Let's first take a look at her kit. Her basic attack is a combo of 4 consecutive attacks, and she enters a new state at the 4th one, called True Sight, lasting for 12 seconds. Her mid-air attack is the same thing, but mid-air, there's not much to say about it. Her heavy attack is performed by holding basic attack on the ground to perform an upward strike. Her mid-air heavy attack is the same thing, but it's a plunge. Her resonance skill is a dash toward the enemy, and she enters True Sight. This skill can be cast mid-air too. Now let's talk about this True Sight state that I keep talking about. Basically, to make it simple, when she is in True Sight state, she gets the opportunity to perform 2 different things. The first one is when she does a basic attack on the ground. She will perform a dash towards the enemy, considered as resonance skill damage. The second one is when she jumps or does a basic attack mid-air. She will also perform a dash, but this one will do less damage than the other one. Her resonance liberation deals damage to nearby targets. She gets 4 stacks of enflammement and enters Fiery Feather state. This skill can be cast mid-air. Basically, what this Fiery Feather state does is, when Changli releases heavy attack during this state, her attack is increased by 25%, after which Fiery Feather ends. Now let's take a look at her Forte circuit. When she has 4 stacks of enflammement and performs an heavy attack, she consumes all stacks to cast Flaming Sacrifice, which will deal damage considered as resonance skill damage, and she also gets a 40% damage reduction. The way she gets these enflammement stacks is by performing one of the 2 special skill in True Sight state I talked about earlier. They each give 1 stack. Or if she does her liberation, she instantly gets the 4 stacks. And finally, her outrow skill, which I think is the most important part of her kit. She gives a 20% fusion damage buff and 25% liberation damage buff to the next character. So, yeah, she is basically a sub-DPS made for any main DPS fusion characters, like Encore and future fusion characters. Assuming in the future we get Scar, he will most likely be a main DPS, so Changli and Scar might actually be a meta team in the future. But for now, you can probably use her with any main DPS. She will still be fine as long as the main DPS you're playing has a strong liberation skill. And in case you guys want to wail for her, this is what she gets from S1 to S6. In my opinion, the 20% team buff at S4 is insane, but everything else is self-damage buffs. For the Echo set, I would probably recommend the fusion one, Molten Rift, but you could also run Moonlit Clouds for better support if you have a strong fusion character. I think most people will use Molten Rift. It will be good especially for exploration since you will have an Inferno Rider as main Echo to travel faster. Then for the main stat on the Inferno Rider, it depends on what you get as weapon. So yeah, it's a good time to talk about the different weapons now. First, her signature weapon, Blazing Brilliance, is a crit damage main stat sword, and it gives a 12% attack buff with a special effect that can buff her resonance skill by 56% maximum. So if you're pulling for her weapon, you will most likely want to have crit rate on the Inferno Rider. But in case you can only use the other 5-star sword, the standard one, which is crit rate main stat, then you should probably get crit damage main stat on the Inferno Rider. Now, before I explain how to play her, like the rotation and stuff, I want to quickly show you all the materials that you will need from level 1 to level 90. Yeah, as you can see, it's pretty insane. I hope you guys pre-farmed a bit, or it's gonna take quite some time to get her maxed. Well, now the moment you've been waiting for, how to play her. So her main role is to get the outro skill as fast as possible and then switch to your main DPS. While you're charging the outro skill, of course you want to do as much damage as possible. So for that, this is what I believe is the best rotation. First, you want to enter True Sight state as many times as possible, to quickly get 4 enflammement stacks and cast her Forte skill. In case you forgot, this is done by doing 4 basic attacks or her skill, and heavy attack once you have the 4 stacks. But in case you managed to get her liberation early, you should definitely cast it as soon as possible to instantly get 4 stacks and a 25% attack buff, which is absolutely insane. So, yeah, I'll put a quick recap on the screen now to make it easier to understand. Finally, for her best teams, I think Encora's main DPS would be great for now, but she will quickly get power creep by Scar or someone else in the future. I think Changli is in a weird spot for now since she doesn't have a limited fusion character as main DPS, so I guess you could play almost any DPS with her until we get one. Well, if you found this guide helpful, please consider subscribing as I'm trying to grow on YouTube. Life is hard as a small creator. You know, I'll make Wuthering Waves and other gacha games content every week. Thank you for watching. See ya!